What's going on, YouTube, and welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte, and yes, we are continuing our season preview series videos today as we're heading up to the Midwest looking at the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings are in the midst of a rebuild in the Yzerman plan, but is this finally the year? As there's been a couple of years now. It's been a drought, a playoff-less drought for the Detroit Red Wings in the Steve Yzerman era. Is this the first time the Red Wings will make the playoffs under the new regime? We're going to take a look at that in today's video as well. So there's a lot to talk about with the Red Wings because they made some pretty notable changes to the roster. And then the expectation, in my opinion, going into the summer was things are going to stay pretty status quo, and they'll add some of the younger rookies and prospects into the roster over the next 2 years. But Yzerman had different plans, and when the opportunity arose, he definitely jumped on it, and he made a couple of pretty significant moves. Now, the biggest one, of course, being Alex DeBrincat coming into Detroit. Now, there's going to be some notable guys that left the organization. Mark Stahl, no longer a part of this organization. He hasn't been for a little while, but he's now long gone. Dominik Kubalik was in my opinion, one of the more notable guys, no longer a part of the Red Wings organization. Pia Suter has now packed his bags for Northern Vancouver, so he'll be out of the fold in Detroit. And of course, we also saw Dominik Kubalik also leave the organization as well, alongside guys like Filip Zadina. So there's a couple of pretty noticeable changes here in Detroit. But that leaves opportunity for some new guys to come in. Now, some of the notable additions, of course, starting off with Alex DeBrincat. They also brought in a Michigan native, JT Compher, Klim Kostin, Daniel Sprong, Christian Fischer, Justin Hall, and James Reimer, just to name a few. So those are some of the bigger additions to the Red Wings roster. A lot of changes up front in particular. But of course, we saw Justin Hall, which was one of the more questionable signings during the summer, at least in my opinion, and from a lot of people around the hockey world. That Justin Hall contract does look a little bit suspicious, especially after the Ben Chiarot contract they signed a couple years ago. Those look like two pretty big anchor contracts, but maybe we'll see that kind of come to fruition at some point in a good way. But definitely an interesting move nonetheless. A couple of other guys to watch for this season that are either rookies or very young players, just kind of dipping their toes into the NHL waters. Elmer Soderblom, there's a lot of expectations for him. He's been a fan favorite in GR last season in particular, so there's a lot of excitement around what he could potentially become. Cross Annis is another guy that a lot of people are really excited for there in Detroit. Now, he did end the season injured last year, so there is the expectation he might start the season again in GR. But even if he doesn't make the opening night roster, there is an expectation he's pretty high up on the list. And guys, that if they need a recall from the Griffins next season, that Cross Annis could get his opportunity again in the National Hockey League. So keep an eye out for him. And of course, Simon Edvinsson, the big defensive prospect for the Red Wings. Man, they've already got Mo Seider. They've got Jake Wallman. And the idea of Simon Edvinsson coming in there, you know, the problem is the depth for the Red Wings blue line still has me a little bit concerned in a couple of areas. So if Simon Edvinsson can take advantage of the opportunity to maybe jump into that top six at some point, that would be a very welcome addition for them. Now, what's kind of interesting here, and I am not necessarily, this is like breaking news. I went on Daily Faceoff and Jeff Petry. Wow, so that one just happened. So good thing I didn't make this video a minute too short here, because Jeff Petry is now a member of the Detroit Red Wings. So the Montreal Canadiens just acquired him back in that massive three-way trade between the Sharks, Penguins, and the Canadiens with Erik Karlsson. Jeff Petry was a member of the Penguins. He ended up going back to Montreal, where he was 2 or 3 seasons ago. And just like that, just a few weeks later, the Detroit Red Wings now have Jeff Petry in the fold. So yeah, that probably takes away a spot from Simon Edvinsson. But wow, what are the chances of that? So basically within minutes of this trade, Jeff Petry is now a member of the Red Wings. So that definitely changes things up a little bit, I would say, as a benefit here for the Red Wings blue line, because now you look at that top four, and that is a way more comfortable top four than what they had previous. Because now you've got Jake Wallman and Mo Seider. We saw how good they were last season together. Chiarot and Petry in some combination with Gostisbehere and Justin Hall. And then you've got the other defensemen like Simon Edvinsson, who we hope to see at some point this season. So the Red Wings blue line looks honestly significantly better there. I know Jeff Petry had a bad season last year in Pittsburgh, but everybody had a bad season in Pittsburgh. And I think that under this group in Detroit, that's actually a welcome upgrade for the Red Wings blue line. Good job there by Yzerman. Now, my prediction for breakout player for the Red Wings, I'm going to go with, everyone's going to say a guy like maybe Simon Edvinsson or Elmer Soderblom or one of those younger guys. I'm going to go with Jonathan Berggren here. Jonathan Berggren had a good season with the Red Wings last season. I think he's going to follow that up here as well. Now, again, another name I would throw out there that maybe a lot of people aren't talking much about, Cross Honest, even Lucas Raymond. Raymond's another one expected to break out this season. They have him listed on Daily Faceoff on that top line alongside Larkin and DeBrincat. And if that's the case, man, what an opportunity that could be for Lucas Raymond. But even if it's not Lucas Raymond, that could be Jonathan Berggren's spot as well. So that's going to be a really interesting player. I'm going to go with Berggren here as my breakout player for the Red Wings. And then comes the ultimate debate. And that is, will the Red Wings make the playoffs next season? And it's going to be tough. This is going to be a tough division to win in. And I could see one of those teams from last year that made the playoffs in the Atlantic missing, which allows for one team in the Atlantic to jump in. And I'm not confident that it's going to be the Red Wings this year. Yeah, I think they're going to see an upgrade in their wins. I could see them getting between 30 to 40 wins this season. I think there is definitely a lot of potential for this Red Wings team this season, but in reality, I'm not sold on the goaltending yet. Sebastian Cossa, even if he does come in, is not really ready, and I don't think that Yzerman's going to be pushing him into the fold, so I'm not even really expecting to see him in the lineup, especially bringing in Reimer. It's going to probably be Ville Husso and James Reimer this season, which means Kossa's not ready, unless he really forces his way into the lineup. So 30 to 40 wins for the Red Wings, 40 being very optimistic, 30 being more realistic here, and I'm going to say anywhere between 80 to 90 points for the Red Wings. Definitely on the lower side of things. In reality, that is a tough division, and I think with the emergence of Buffalo and Ottawa this season, I think those are the teams that I'm more confident in making the playoffs this year in the Atlantic Division. If a team like Florida or Boston or Tampa ends up falling out of a playoff spot this coming season, I think it's going to be one of those teams that jumps in, and I don't think it's the Red Wings' chance quite yet. Yzerman's taking this thing very slow, and I think that's the right approach here. Patience is a virtue, and that is not just a saying. That is a real thing, and I agree here that the Red Wings are a better team. They look better. I think even a guy like Daniel Sprong had a great season in Seattle last year. I think that will continue in Detroit this year. Michael Rasmussen will continue to develop in the lower part of the lineup. Christian Fischer and Kostin, I love those guys on the fourth line. I really liked Fischer in Arizona. Really didn't get much of an opportunity there. Same thing for Kostin. He had a great season last year in Edmonton. I think that's going to continue, add some size and grit to that bottom six for the Red Wings. A team that's, got that European blend with Raymond and Berggren and, some of those guys in there. It's nice to see some of those guys that are a little bit bigger in the bottom six that are still young but have the potential to be good players like Fischer and Kostin. I think those are great additions to their lineup. And like I said, the blue line looks a lot better. Bringing in Gas to spare, bringing in Justin Hall, and now the most recent addition to the Red Wings and Jeff Petry. I think all those guys are going to help this team get you toward that optimistic idea of maybe 40 wins this season. But even if they get to 40 wins this season, I don't even think that will be enough. You're looking at maybe somewhere between 42, at least 42 wins with 90 to 95, maybe even 100 points to make the playoffs in the Metropolitan and Atlantic Division this season in the Eastern Conference. Those wild card spots are going to be tough. Honestly, they might be more difficult than just making, being one of the top three seeds in the division. And that's because I think those teams are going to get worn out as the season goes along. So I think the Red Wings are going to give themselves an opportunity. They did well last year, but I do have some concerns about, let's be honest. Yeah, even with Petry there, I think it's an upgrade, but the depth still isn't there to make the playoffs and go on a run or anything like that. But the Red Wings are a better team. And like I said, the rebuild will continue, but things are looking up for the Red Wings. It's a slow progression year after year, and even if they get to 85 points, that's a better season than last season where they hit 80 points. So even if they hit 5 more points this season, 5 more points next season, maybe even more than that next season with some of the other guys coming in, man, the sky's the limit for the Red Wings. It's just not yet. So guys, that's it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think down below. What do you think of the Red Wings? Do you think they're capable of making the playoffs this season? Do you think they need another year of development and things like that? But I want to know what you guys think down below. I just don't think the window is quite there yet, especially with the layout of this division. The landscape is still very tough with some of those teams toward the top just not falling off quite yet. So we'll see what happens. I think the story could change next year, but as of right now, not confident the Red Wings get in. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.